My parents didn't just betray me, they dragged me into court and demanded every dollar I'd ever earned, claiming my entire fortune belonged to the family. They expected me to break down, apologize, hand over everything like the obedient daughter they raised. But when I stood up, looked the judge in the eye, and said the truth they'd spent years hiding, the entire courtroom froze. The judge went pale. My mother went silent. And my father realized he just destroyed himself. If you're interested in this gist, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments. And I will give you a heart. People assume the worst thing a parent can do is yell at you, ignore your achievements, or guilt trip you into being who they want. No, the worst thing a parent can do is look you dead in the eye, smile like they're doing God's work, and serve you legal papers demanding your entire life savings. That was the moment I realized my parents didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as an ATM that learned how to walk. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I had just finished a meeting with my financial advisor. Ironic, I know. When I saw them waiting in the lobby, dressed like they were heading to a church fundraiser instead of a legal ambush. My dad stood up with a confidence he didn't earn, holding a white envelope like it was a holy relic. My mom gave me this pitying smile, the kind she used whenever she wanted to manipulate me into compliance. "Suyar," she said softly, "this is for your own good." In hindsight, that should have been my warning to run. My dad handed me the envelope. "We need to ensure the family's financial future," he said, popping his chest out. "And since your success came from us raising you, it's only fair we receive compensations." Compensation. Like I was some rental appliance they wanted to return for store credit. I opened the envelope. Inside was a court summons. My parents, my actual biological parents, were suing me for the entirety of my assets. My earned income, my investments, my property, even my intellectual property rights, everything. They claimed I owe them reimbursement for upbringing, emotional labor, parental guidance, and career shaping. Career shaping? My mother once told me medicine is too hard, try something easy like hospitality. My father told me to stop dreaming bigger than your paycheck. These people hadn't shaped my career. They tried to shrink it. "Is this a joke?" I asked. My dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." Funny how parents love calling you dramatic when they're the ones who just detonated a lawsuit in your hands. My mother touched my arm like she was comforting a sick patient. "You're financially stable now. You can afford to give back. Your father and I sacrificed so much." "Sacrificed?" I repeated. "Name one." She hesitated. My dad jumped in. "We paid for your school supplies." "When I was 7, I said. "Do you want interest on the crayons too?" He bristled. "This attitude is exactly why we're doing this. Your money made you ungrateful." "My money," I echoed, "made me independent." And that was the real problem. They had spent years trying to control me, guilt me, shame me, and when none of that worked, they tried to legalize ownership of my life. My mother sighed theatrically. "We knew you'd react like this. That's why it's better for a judge to decide. He'll understand fairness." I almost laughed. They genuinely thought a judge would take one look at me, a self-made woman who built her fortune from nothing, and say, "Yes, let's give it all back to mommy and daddy." But here's the thing. Narcissists don't prepare for backlash. They prepare for victory. My parents walked out of that lobby proud, confident, and idiotically certain they'd win. I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from disbelief. They weren't just greedy. They were delusional. That night, I sat at my kitchen counter, the court paper spread out in front of me like a battlefield map. My best friend, Joy, was pacing around my living room, waving her arms like she was trying to flag down a helicopter. "They sued you?" she shouted. "Your parents sued you for being successful? Who raised these people? Disney villains?" "It doesn't matter," I said quietly. "They want war. They'll get war." Joy froze. "You're not considering settling, right?" No, I said, I'm considering ending this. Her eyes widened. Ending it how? I looked down at the papers again. There, in the statement of claims, was the single most stupid thing my parents could have included: a lie. A probable, documentable lie. They claimed they had funded my education, supported my early career, provided monthly allowances, helped me buy my first home. None of that was true. Not 1 cent of it. I paid for community college with scholarships. I worked 2 jobs to get through university. I lived in a car for 6 months during my internship when my parents refused to let me move back home unless I gave them household compensation. I built my life from scratch. And now their lies were written, submitted, signed. They just handed me their self-destruction, I told Joy, in legal print. Joy dropped onto the couch. Oh my God. They don't even know what's coming. No, I said. They don't. Because if my parents wanted fairness, good. I'd give it to them, with evidence, witnesses, dates, receipts, emails, and every humiliation they ever forced me through. They wanted a courtroom, I'd walk in with an entire arsenal. But the twist, the one they didn't see coming, wasn't the evidence, it wasn't the witnesses, it wasn't even my testimony. No, the twist was the person who contacted me 2 nights before the hearing. Someone I never expected to hear from again. Someone who knew everything about my parents. Someone who said only 7 words. I think it's time the truth came out. And when I heard their voice, I knew this case wasn't just mine anymore. It was justice, and it was about to bury my parents alive. The voice on the phone didn't sound like justice, it sounded like a ghost. Calm, familiar, dangerous. I think it's time the truth came out, they said again. My heart stopped because I recognized that voice instantly. It belonged to my parents' former best friend, Aunt Valerie. Not a real aunt, but the woman who practically raised me while my parents perfected the art of neglect. She was the one who packed my lunches when my mother said she was too tired, the one who showed up at my school talent shows when my father had more important things to do, the one who used to tell me, gently, you don't owe them more than they gave you. And when I turned 18, my parents cut her off, abruptly, cruelly. They said she was causing division and putting ideas in my head, ideas like independence, boundaries, self-worth. Now, 10 years later, her voice was in my ear again, steady as ever. Valerie? I whispered. How did you know? Your mother came to me, she said. She wanted me to testify against you, said you owed her, and that I needed to support her as a friend. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, anger, shame, rage. And what did you say? Valerie let out a laugh. Low, razor sharp, exhausted. I told her I wouldn't lie under oath for anyone, especially not for 2 people who spent years lying to everyone they met. My breath shook. Valerie, they're suing me for everything. I know, she said quietly. That's why I'm here. There was a pause. Heavy, loaded, intimate. I kept things, she said. Records, messages, pictures, notes, from when you were a teenager, from when they neglected you, from when you were living in your car. My throat tightened. Why would you? Because, she said gently, I knew one day you'd need them. I wiped my eyes. I didn't even remember crying. Valerie, I don't know what to say. Say nothing, she replied. Just meet me before the hearing. And just like that, she hung up. I sat there in the darkness, trembling, not from fear, but from something rare. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, I met her at the courthouse cafe. She looked older but not weaker. Her hair was streaked with silver, her face determined, her presence still warm enough to soften the entire building. You look strong, Flash, she said as I sat down. You look ready, I exhaled. I don't know if I am. Oh, you are, she said. Then she set down a thick binder on the table. A binder labeled, The Things They Did. I stared at it. My entire childhood. Documented. Why do you keep all of this? I whispered. Because when people show you who they are, she said softly, you write it down. My hands shook as I opened the binder. The first page was a faded photo of 12-year-old me sitting outside my own house in the rain, waiting for someone to remember to pick me up from school. They never did. Valerie had found me there. The second page was an email from my father to a family friend. She's smart but not smart enough. We don't expect much from her. The third page was a text message from my mother complaining to her sister. She thinks she'll be something big, let her fail. Maybe then she'll appreciate us. My stomach twisted. These weren't just neglectful moments. These were insults, lies, patterns, intentions. Valerie placed her hand over mine. They've always resented your success, she said. They always wanted you small. I looked up at her. Valerie, will you testify? She squeezed my hand. I'll do more than that. Before I could ask what she meant, the courtroom doors opened. Next case, Reynolds versus Reynolds. My parents walked in with the confidence of royalty entering a coronation. My father wore a smug smile. My mother carried tissues as if she was already the victim. And then they saw Valerie. My mother's entire face fell. My father stiffened. My mother whispered harshly, "What are you doing here?" Valerie smiled politely, telling the truth. My mother's jaw clenched confirmation. "The truth? You always poisoned her against us." "No," Valerie said calmly. "You did that yourselves." The bailiff called for order. We took our seats. My parents sat across the aisle, radiating entitlement. Then the judge entered. The same judge who had worked with family cases for 24 years. He looked exhausted before we even started. Perfect. My father's lawyer began with theatrics. "Your Honor, my clients raised their daughter with love, support, and financial investment. She only achieved success because of their sacrifices." My stomach flipped. Lies sound so polished when spoken by professionals. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood. "Your Honor, everything they just said is false, and we have evidence." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed?" And Valerie stood up. "Not my lawyer, not me. Valerie," her voice was steady, clear, cutting. "Your Honor, I am here today because I witnessed years of neglect estabor menapoliosio. Emotional manipulation, financial abandonment, and now legal exploitation." My mother gasped. My father muttered, "Traitor?" Valerie continued. "Her parents did not support her career, they sabotaged it. They did not help her financially, they drained her. They did not encourage her, they belittled her. I have records of every incident." Time-stamped, verified. She placed the binder on the judge's bench. He opened it. The courtroom went silent. He flipped through the first 10 pages. His face changed. It went pale, exactly the way the hawk promised. My parents stiffened. Then the judge looked at them with an expression I had never seen before, disgust. "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds," he said, "you submitted fabricated financial claims in your lawsuit." My father stammered. "Fabricated? Absolutely not." "Quiet," the judge snapped. "This is one of the worst abuses of legal process I've seen." My mother's lips trembled. My father's face drained. The judge slammed the file shut. "I have seen enough." But he didn't stop there. Oh no. The real twist came next. "Miss Reynolds," he said to me, "before I issue my ruling, is there anything you wish to say?" And this was the moment. The one that silenced the one that made the judge pale, the one that ended everything they fought for. I stood up, turned to face my parents, and spoke the words I had saved for this exact moment. Words they never saw coming. I stood slowly, feeling every pair of eyes in that courtroom lock onto me. My parents straightened, ready for a sentimental plea, an apology, a desperate attempt to negotiate. They expected the obedient daughter they spent years sculpting into silence. What they got instead was the woman they created through neglect. I faced the judge, then turned to my parents. Two people who had no idea their last day of control had already passed. Your Honor, I began, voice steady but sharp enough to cut glass, my parents didn't file this lawsuit out of need. They filed it out of greed. My father scoffed loudly. My mother whispered, ungrateful. I continued. For years, I believed that maybe I was the problem, that if I worked harder, achieved more, or earned enough, they would finally be proud. Instead, the more successful I became, the more they resented me. A flicker moved across my mother's face. Fear, shame, exposure. I didn't stop. They weren't suing me for money, I said. They were suing me for ownership. They wanted control over something they didn't build, didn't support, and didn't sacrifice for. My father snapped. We raised you. I turned to him calm. You were physically present. That's not the same as raising someone. Gasps echoed. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Reynolds, if you interrupt again, I will hold you in contempt. My father shut his mouth, but the rage trembling through him was almost comical. I took a breath, not because I was nervous, but because I wanted to deliver the next line slowly enough for it to sink deep. Your Honor, my parents did not support my education. They did not support my career. They did not support my life. I walked forward and placed a copy of a bank statement on the bench. In fact, while I was living out of my car during my internship, they were withdrawing money from my savings account. My mother's lips parted in horror. She hadn't expected that. No one had expected that. That's a lie, she cried. I pulled out the second document. This, Renat, this is your handwriting. Her face drained. My father turned on her instantly. You told me she gave us permission, he shouted. She fired back. You told me you had permission. The courtroom erupted as they began arguing with each other, blaming, accusing, unraveling right there in front of the judge. He slammed the gavel again. Order! Order! They froze, chests heaving. I continued. Your Honor, the issue here is not financial hardship. My parents are not struggling. Valerie stood and walked forward with another document. The judge took it. His eyebrows shot up. I explained, this is the deed to the lake house they purchased last year, using the money they claim to have spent raising me. A murmur spread across the room. My father's jaw twitched violently. My mother looked like she was about to faint. They didn't need my money, I said. They simply wanted more control. Control over me, my work, my life, my independence. The judge folded his hands. Miss Reynolds, do you have anything else to present? I nodded. Slowly, deliberately. Yes, Your Honor. One final piece? I pulled out the paper I had saved for this moment, the one that carried every ounce of truth they tried to bury. My parents are claiming they funded my education, correct? Correct, the judge said. I held up a letter. This, I told him, is the letter they wrote when I asked for help paying my final semester tuition. It was quiet, silent, heavy. I read the letter out loud. Dear Maya, we've decided not to help you. Your dreams are unrealistic and we're not investing money into something that will probably fail. Consider this a lesson in responsibility. Mom and Dad, the courtroom gasped. It wasn't the words, it was the cruelty in how casually they wrote them. My mother burst into tears. My father clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. We didn't mean it like that, my mother wailed. I turned to her. You meant every word, she sobbed harder. My father barked. That letter doesn't matter, you're successful now. I stared him dead in the eyes. I became successful because of that letter. Not despite it, because it taught me I couldn't depend on you for anything, not even emotional support. The judge leaned back, studying my parents like they were specimens under glass. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, he began. It is clear from the evidence that not only did you not support your daughter's education, but you actively hindered her progress. My father shook his head wildly. This is twisted. She owes us. The judge slammed the gavel so hard the echo ricocheted off the walls. She owes you nothing. That silence right there was worth more than my entire fortune. My mother covered her face. My father slammed back like the floor had been yanked from under him. And then the judge turned to me. Miss Reynolds, what would you like the court to do with your parents' claim? I looked at them, the two people who had broken me into pieces for years, believing they would never face consequences. Dismiss it, I said softly, with prejudice. Gasps. My parents jolted. The judge nodded. So ordered. He stamped the papers. Firm, final, powerful. My mother made a choking sound. My father looked like he'd swallowed poison. But I wasn't done, because the courtroom may have ended the lawsuit, but I was about to end the lies. Your Honor, I said, there is one more thing. He nodded. Go on. I turned fully to my parents, my voice calm, steady, lethal. In this courtroom, you tried to take everything from me. Today, I am giving something back. They looked confused, terrified, desperate. I continued, the truth. And when I spoke the next sentence, the entire room fell into a silence so deep it felt like gravity had shifted. It was the line that made the judge pale, the one that silenced my mother, the one that destroyed the last illusion my parents lived in. The courtroom was already holding its breath, but when I turned fully toward my parents, something in the air tightened. People shifted in their seats. Even the stenographer leaned forward, like she knew she was about to type history. My parents stared back at me, my mother trembling, my father visibly cracking. In this courtroom, I began, each word slow, measured, deliberate. You tried to take everything from me. Today, I'm giving something back. They exchanged confused glances, and for the first time in my life, they looked small, really small. Like two people who finally realized the child they underestimated grew into someone they could never overpower again. The judge waited. The audience waited. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to flicker quiet. I took a breath and delivered the sentence that shattered everything they valued. The truth is, you didn't sue me because you need money. You sued me because I stopped needing you. The entire courtroom froze. My mother's eyes widened like she'd just been slapped by the universe itself. My father's jaw dropped. Before he clenched it so hard a vein popped in his temple. The judge paled, exactly like the hook promised, because he understood the weight of what I just said. That wasn't a dramatic line, that wasn't a comeback, that was the diagnosis of a family disease. My father's voice cracked. That's not true, but I cut him off with a stare so sharp it silenced them instantly. For years, you controlled me by making me believe I wasn't enough, I said. You told me I couldn't succeed without you. You mocked my dreams. You dismissed my goals. And the moment my life proved you wrong, you panicked. My mother let out a shaking breath. Honey, Don't, I said sharply. Don't call me honey. You didn't want a daughter. You wanted a dependent. A ripple of gasps. Someone whispered, Oh my God! My father leaned forward. You think we're villains? We're your parents! Parents protect, I said. Parents guide, parents support. You don't get to weaponize the title without doing the job. The judge nodded subtly, as if silently agreeing. My mother started crying. Loud, messy, performative crying. The kind she used when her manipulation wasn't landing the way she wanted. We loved you, she sobbed. We worked so hard. I laughed once. Dry, cold, final. You work hard at pretending. The judge lifted a hand. Miss Reynolds, would you like to present further evidence? I would, I said, pulling out my phone. My parents stiffened. What is that? My father barked. Your words, I replied. I clicked play on a recording, one they didn't know existed. It was from 2 years ago, a voicemail my father left me after I refused to loan them money again. His voice boomed through the speakers. If you weren't so selfish, we wouldn't be struggling. You owe us. If it weren't for us, You wouldn't even exist. The least you can do is pay us back, my mother's voice followed. You can't keep ignoring us. You'll come running back eventually. You always do. The courtroom murmurs turned into full-on shockwaves. My father shot to his feet. You recorded us. No, I said calmly. You left that on voicemail. The judge slammed the gavel. Sit down, Mr. Reynolds. I see now, my father said slowly, every inch of his posture collapsing. My mother covered her mouth. Valerie, sitting behind me, closed her eyes and whispered, finally. I turned back to the judge. Your Honor, this lawsuit isn't about fairness, it's about punishment. They're punishing me for growing up, for becoming independent, for breaking the cycle they expected me to repeat. My voice softened, not weak, but painfully honest. They needed me small so they could feel big. My mother sobbed harder. My father whispered something under his breath that even he didn't believe. This is lies, all lies. I looked them both in the eyes. If anything I said was a lie, you wouldn't be crying. More gasps. My parents froze. The judge leaned forward. Miss Reynolds, is there anything else you wish to say before I rule? I nodded. Just one thing. I pulled out one last envelope. My parents' panic was instant, visible, raw, almost feral. This, I said, is a written statement I prepared when I finally realized the truth about my life. My mother whispered, No, please. I ignored her. I read it out loud. I spent years begging for your approval. Years thinking I wasn't enough. Years believing your love was something I had to earn. But I don't need what you refuse to give, and I won't carry the weight of your insecurity anymore. Silence. Deep. Heavy. Unrecoverable. I ended with the sentence that destroyed whatever power they had left. You can't demand what you didn't invest. My father broke, not violently, pathetically. His shoulders slumped, his eyes dropped, the image of a man discovering he couldn't bully his way out of the truth anymore. My mother reached for him, but he shrugged her off. Even they were turning on each other now. The judge cleared his throat, voice steady but shaken. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, your lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, and given the evidence presented, the court is considering sanctions against you for abuse of legal process. My parents gasped, loudly, desperate, and that's when the twist arrived, unexpected, bone deep, soul shaking. A woman at the back of the courtroom stood up, slowly, with purpose. I didn't recognize her at first, but when she spoke, everything inside me froze. Your Honor, she said, I have something to add, and it concerns the real reason these two want her money. The courtroom spun. My parents turned toward her in terror. My skin went numb because I suddenly remembered who she was. Someone whose name my parents refused to mention for over a decade. Someone they swore had moved away. Someone whose disappearance had always felt off. Her next sentence made the entire courtroom erupt. I'm their estranged first daughter. For a moment, the entire courtroom stopped breathing. Even the air froze like it needed time to register what this stranger had just said. I'm their estranged first daughter. My mother's scream ripped through the room before anyone else could react. No, you don't get to say that. You don't get to... The judge slammed his gavel. Order! Order! The woman walked forward with a calmness that terrified even me. Shoulders steady, footsteps controlled, eyes burning with the kind of truth people can't run from. When she reached the center aisle, she turned toward me first. Not my parents, me. I'm Olivia, she said. My chest tightened because I knew that name. I heard it whispered once when I was 14, then quickly dismissed by my mother as no one important. But she wasn't no one. She was someone they erased. My father's voice was shaking. This is ridiculous. You're not... You can't be. I have the birth certificate. Olivia said, lifting a folder. I am the first daughter you abandoned. Gasps exploded across the room like fireworks. My mother turned choke white. My father looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. The judge blinked hard, shaken. Approach, he ordered. Olivia handed him the documents. He read them slowly, carefully. Then he looked up at my parents with pure disgust. These signatures, he said, are both of yours? My mother collapsed into her chair. My father looked like he was about to faint. Your Honor, Olivia continued, voice steady. They abandoned me when I was 8 because they didn't want to waste resources on 2 daughters. I felt sick. Olivia turned toward me again. I saw your story online. I recognized their names. I realized they didn't just neglect me, they replaced me. My throat tightened. This was the missing puzzle piece I felt my entire life but could never name. My father rose to his feet, face bright red. Lies? All of it. The judge glared at him. Sit down. My father dropped back into his chair. Olivia opened her folder again. I have records, she said. Emails they sent to family members saying they gave up on their first child, saying they wanted a fresh start, saying they'd try again with the next one, maybe she'd turn out better. My stomach twisted. They raised her. Like she was a mistake. A draft they could throw away. Olivia continued. When I turned 18, I tried contacting them. They blocked me. They told relatives I was mentally unstable, that I was dangerous, that I wasn't to be acknowledged. I looked at my parents. They refused to look back. Your Honor, Olivia said, do you want to know the real reason they filed this lawsuit? The judge nodded, slowly, and lightened the court. Olivia's next words detonated the entire room. They're broke. My mother screamed again. No, we're not. We're not broke. Olivia ignored her. They've been losing money for years. Bad investments, poor decisions, mismanagement. They're drowning in debt. Their bank accounts are nearly empty, and they know I will never give them a cent. My brain spun. That's why. Olivia said, turning toward me. They turned to you. Their replacement daughter. Their financial backup plan. Their retirement fund. My father slammed his fist on the table. You are not our daughter. Olivia looked at him with a calm so powerful it felt like the whole room shifted. You're right, she said. You're biologically my parents, but that's all you ever were. My mother sobbed uncontrollably. Stop, please, stop. But Olivia wasn't done. She faced the judge. They told me when I was 8 that I was a burden, that I wasn't worth the money. They told relatives I was too difficult to raise. They made sure I had nothing when they left. She pointed to me. And now they want everything from her. The judge turned cold. Ice cold. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, he said, voice low and cutting. What do you have to say for yourselves? My father tried to stand but stumbled. She's making all of this up, my mother whispered. We just wanted help. We just needed help. Olivia snapped. You wanted ownership. You wanted control. You wanted another chance to manipulate someone who didn't know the truth. I felt the weight of every year, every painful memory, every belittling comment they ever made to me. It all made sense now. They had already abandoned one daughter. I was the second attempt. And now that their lives were falling apart, they wanted someone to bleed for their mistakes. Your Honor, I said quietly, stepping forward. I have something to add. The judge nodded. I turned toward Olivia fully. You deserved better, I told her. Tears filled her eyes instantly. The courtroom fell silent. And I'm sorry, I continued. I'm sorry they did this to you. I'm sorry you had to grow up alone. I'm sorry they erased you. A tear slid down her cheek. You shouldn't apologize for their choices, she whispered. I shook my head. Maybe not, but I'm apologizing for mine. She frowned. What choices? I swallowed hard. for believing they were capable of love. My mother let out a wail, loud, guttural, the sound of a structure collapsing. The judge raised his gavel. "I have heard enough," he said. "My ruling is as follows. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. The plaintiffs are sanctioned for lying under oath, falsifying financial claims, and abusing the legal system. They are ordered to pay the defendants' legal fees in full." My parents gasped like they'd been punched. The judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, based on the presented evidence, the court recommends an investigation into potential financial fraud. My parents froze. "White? Empty. Finished." The judge looked at me. "Miss Reynolds, you are free to go." I nodded, but before I left, I turned to Olivia. "Would you like to get coffee sometime, Star? Something new?" She smiled softly. "I'd like that." And then I turned to my parents. Two people who had finally run out of lies to hide behind. I delivered the final line they would never recover from. "You didn't lose my money today. You lost your daughter." The courtroom doors opened, and for the first time in my life, I walked out free.